Join me every month for the inspiration to find your finish line. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Find Your Finish Line, presented by Activize, the official topical pain relief partner of Ironman, where you can find their products on Amazon.com. I'm Mike Riley, everybody, and this podcast is not only about you finding your finish line at a race or an event, but in life. I'll talk to people from all walks of life that have overcome hurdles to be able to get to where they are today, to be able to get to that finish line. And my guest today, I'm very excited to have on. She's a person who has overcome some pretty big odds in her life to get to where she's at today. She's a 5-time Ironman finisher. She was 4th in her age division in Kona in 2019. Last year in 2021, she won her age division at Ironman New Zealand. Let's welcome Nikki Mathews. Hello, Nikki.
Hi, Mike. How are you?
I am fantastic, and thank you very much for being on. You're an inspiration, and selfishly, I'm just so happy to have a Kiwi on because I want to get to Ironman New Zealand back in March again, but who knows? So you may be the closest I get.
Yeah, we're still guessing here too, and I really feel for the teams, especially the New Zealand teams. You know, trying to pull everything together over the last couple of years. It's been hard, I think, for athletes and the race organisers as well. It's been a few tough years for everyone, but I mean, hell, if you can do Ironman.
Yeah, I know. Before I jump into everything and your background, I said when we were off the air that when you finished in 2019 in Kona, you came in with I swear 10 or 12 guys were around you, and I didn't hear myself say your name. So hopefully I called you an Ironman when you did come across in 2019. Congratulations on that.
Thank you. It's pretty delusional as you come across that line, to be honest. And clearly I just need to be a little bit faster so I can come across the line by myself instead of with a group. So I'll remember that for next time.
Yeah, I know. When you go as fast as you did, just over 10 hours, your type of athlete doesn't like to wait by the side to come in by themselves so they get the finish line by themselves. So that'll never happen.
If you see my video, I kind of push my way through, arms in the air, take my moment. You never know if it's going to happen again, right? So
Exactly. Well, anorexia, in the dictionary, it's defined as an eating disorder causing people to obsess about their weight and what they eat and how they look. And that short definition just doesn't do justice to the long-term effects of that disease, does it?
No, it's actually one of the highest mortality rates of a mental disease there is. And I think that in itself means that it just should be talked about more. And it's very prevalent among women, and it often gets seen around women, but it's also prevalent among males as well. So I think it definitely needs to be talked about. It's often seen as something that you should be able to control by the general public, which is alcohol. You just stop drinking, but it's not like eating. Just start eating. It's a whole raft of things in it. Yeah, it's very simplified. But it's very, very intricate. But I've certainly come a long way and learnt a lot, and physically a lot better now. Obviously, now I can compete in Ironman, but there's still the mental battle that goes on. And I guess, through the triathlon, you face those mental battles all the time, regardless if you have, an eating disorder or drugs or alcohol or self-harm or anything like that. You face those mental battles when you train. So it's a great way to learn about yourself and how to overcome, certain obstacles.
Yeah. And Nikki, it's that misnomer of that mental disease where people say, like eating, hey, well, just make sure you eat more. You'll be okay. or mental and just think positively. You'll be okay. And people don't realize that, a lot of people do, but a lot don't, that the mental disorder is a cancer in its own right. And you started feeling that at 15 years old as a young woman. And for 15 years you battled it. The 15 years didn't go by fast, but when you look back now, Was there any time to where you thought, you know what? I don't know if I want to die or if I want to live.
There were plenty of moments like that, and plenty of nights you would go to bed and part of me would be like, it'd be just kind of good if I died in my sleep. It would make life easier for everyone else, because you could see how it affects everyone around you, and also how tiring it makes yourself that you're constantly battling. So there were many times I was like, it'd be kind of nice just to not wake up and just die.
Just have it over.
Yeah. But then you wake up in the morning, you're like, yeah, okay, fighting another day. Right, here we go. But yeah, 15 years is a long time, and I kind of don't even realize it's been 15 years. It's just, I guess I still feel like I'm still learning. And it's not just about food, but just the way I handle myself or handle situations. And I'm 41 now, but physically I often don't do things that a normal 41-year-old would do. And I guess that's the beauty of just not pinning an age on anything either, that you can, it's all in the mind.
Yeah, and it's interesting when someone like yourself looks back and you go, my gosh, it's been 15 years, but I don't know where it went, but I do know where it went. But what's refreshing is it's still an everyday process. It's not like you're healed and okay, let's move forward, is it?
No, it's it's for me, the eating disorder was very much a protective mechanism, and it protected me from kind of like emotional bullying, uncertainty in my life, not feeling self-confident, just the lack of self-confidence that I had to go forward in the world as me, and I didn't know who me was at that point. So at that age, we're still at 15, you're still trying to figure out, what you stand for. Am I attractive to other people? Am I saying the right things? At that age, you're also having to choose, career paths. And there's a whole lot of ambiguity in your life at that point. And I had a lot of teasing as well, and kind of, I guess you could say, emotional bullying amongst girls rather than physical. And so I kind of used the eating disorder to shut that all off and protect me and just focus on the things that I could control and the things that I could feel good about. And so now when those external factors arise, it's often easy to go back to those old behaviours. And so it's very much hang on, stop, check, what are the other methods that I have to prevent me from, self-harming in terms of, starving or purging or whatever it is. And that can be the same with anyone with a kind of, self-harm or alcohol. You've got to have other mechanisms in play. And one of the big ones for me, one of my outlets is training. I just need to make sure I continue to do that in a healthy way.
Well, Nikki, when you looked in the mirror back then, if you can explain it at all, what did you see?
Back then, I realized how sick I was. It was never for me a need to get skinnier. It was, I saw how sick I was. I covered up a lot with clothes, but I saw someone that was worthless, that really didn't offer anyone anything, or what was the point in me actually being here? And then the sicker you got, the more that compounded, because then you also saw the stress that you were causing. So it's a hard one when people say, eat to get better, and you're like, but I can see that it's not like, I can see the destruction that I'm causing, and is that going to change? And, if I eat and get better, I'll be capable of doing things, but emotionally I might not be capable. So
it's
I think
not the cure. Eating is not the cure. Yeah.
Eating needs to happen alongside all the other aspects of, building your self-confidence, going into situations you're unfamiliar with, but having the skills to deal with those situations. And they can be as simple as going to a cafe and trying to order something off a menu and asking, could I have almond milk instead of cow's milk type thing? And just that seems so simple now, and I do it now. But back then it was like, I can't ask for something different. What they'll say no, or what gives me the right.
So it's like back then it was climbing a mountain, wasn't it?
Oh yeah, back then too. It was like, almond milk? What do you want about? And it's the same thing, when you start work and you have conflicts at work, or just in life in general, you might have a different opinion. And my way of dealing with that back then was to just shut down, don't say anything, just basically disappear. And I guess I was doing that physically as well, disappearing.
Nikki, did you feel guilty about your parents or the people around you and the strain you could probably see that was in their lives because of this?
Absolutely. So I have a mum and a dad and a brother that's 4 years younger, and I was 15 at the time. So my brother was 11 when it kind of first started. And you could see the strain it was putting mostly on my mum to start with, because mum was the one that was mostly doing the cooking and the feeding, so to speak. So my anger would always be directed at her. And then, of course, that affected, her relationship with my brother and my dad. And then you could see the strain, and everyone just started to get a little bit angst and a little bit stressed. And, of course, my brother really didn't know what was going on. I mean, if you don't want your burger, I'll eat your burger type thing,
Yeah.
And then, it got very stressful. I got quite sick when I was 17 in my last year of school, went to hospital quite a few times. And I don't remember much of kind of all that kind of time period. For me is very much a blur, because all I remember was just struggle. Just every day was a struggle to breathe, to hold your head up, to get through the day. In and out of hospital, seeing psychiatrists, seeing dietitians. Then I was lucky enough to, my parents found a place overseas in Australia, which was a kind of an outpatient clinic, but I spent most of the day there. There was nothing like that in New Zealand, and they worked both on the eating as well as the kind of the emotional side as well together. So it was an amazing facility. So I was fortunate to go over there, but that was about 2 years, and that was really tough for me in terms of I felt like I was splitting up my family, because my mum and I went over there and lived there while my dad and my brother stayed in New Zealand. So
wow,
that was tough for me, seeing that split. But we're a super tight family, and one of the things that we use to get through is humour. So we can often crack some silly jokes that to others are like, how can you say that? But we're very in tune with each other. So that was one of the things that that got us through that time. And even now, we're very tight. My brother only lives a kilometre away from me. So, we're
it's
pretty cool.
It's amazing how something like that can either separate or bond. And I'm glad to hear the bond is so strong with your family, because that's part of your healing every day also, to have that strength of the family. 100%. We're talking with Nikki Mathews from Auckland, New Zealand, Ironman athlete. She suffered from anorexia for 15 years. Nikki, I've heard both sides where someone could be in therapy and all of a sudden the bell goes off. Oh, I know what I have to do to heal. But it's usually not like that, is it?
I wish there was a bell.
Did anything go off for you?
Unfortunately not. I've heard that as well. And trust me, I was waiting for that for 15 years for a light switch to be turned on. I was like, when is that happening? Or has my bulb gone out? I'm not sure. For me, it was literally just time. And that's the hardest thing to tell a sufferer or a sufferer's family, is there is no timeline. You can't put a timeline on it. It's literally testing and learning to go against what the negative voice is telling you, or what your eating disorder is telling you, is to test out those theories, learn from them, gain some self-confidence and move forward. And for me, that unfortunately took 15 years. But yeah, there was no light switch. I don't even know. I can't even pinpoint you a time when I could say, oh, that's it. I'm well enough. It's just a time.
What does your positive voice say to your negative voice when those negative thoughts come in?
At the moment, so we're leading into race at the moment, and my negative voice is very heightened as we lead in. So we're 2 weeks out from a race. And at this time, my voice is saying, first of all, I start comparing myself with other athletes. Then I look at myself and I say, well, I'm not running fast enough. I'm not biking fast enough. I'm going to be a loser. Everyone's going to laugh at me. Everyone's going to think I'm a failure. And so I have these list of either mantras or sayings that I've learned from other people or listened to that kind of put things in perspective. And it's about a great one that I've learned is success and winning are two very different things. And success for me can be something like, nailing the nutrition or nailing the swim, and then coming out and doing what I can on the day with the legs that I've given to hit the watts on the bike, given the wind, and seeing my family there on the finish line. Those are all success factors for me. Whether I win the race or not, that's a whole nother thing. So I go out in a race, I play to win, but that doesn't determine my success. And so it's those types of things that I've write down, read, get it ingrained in my head. So when I start thinking negatively, I'm like, well, hold up. It's not about if I get out on the bike and I can't hit those watts, what can I do in that moment to ensure I get to the next stage, which is the run? Focus on that. Focus on nutrition. I can't control what is happening around me. What I control at that point in time is my mindset. And that will be the biggest thing that will get me through that day. And that's what you learn, I guess, having gone through an eating disorder, is it's all about the mind. It's the biggest muscle you have to train it to learn something different.
Nikki, you had a tough navigation in your teenage years and your 20s, and all of a sudden you get to your 30s, and Nikki Mathews finds out that, hey, this working out thing pushes demons away. And it progressed for you. As you know, I talked to Cameron Harper, our buddy, and who I announced with in New Zealand. He was talking about you showing up at the Wednesday runs, and as a quote unquote average athlete.
Oh yeah.
And he goes, before you know it, she's out there talking smack and leading the group.
Seriously, I would turn up to those run squads, and I would literally go home from there, and sometimes I'd be in tears. I'm like, I am the slowest in the group. I am awful. What everyone's probably like, what is she going to even manage an Ironman? And I guess the biggest thing for me is just learning that it's just patience and time and walking before you can run. You just got to stick at it. And then next minute, like Cameron Harper says, I'm turning up and able to lead the boys out, which has always been my thing of like, oh, one day I want to be good enough to run with the boys or bike with the boys because they're pretty strong and they're pretty fast. And that's more of a success factor than actually winning any race, is just, beating the boys to the top of the hill or keeping with them on a run. And you can't, all of a sudden you're there and you're like, oh yeah, I actually didn't notice the progression.
You didn't notice. I tell you what, they noticed.
They know.
They're going, what the heck is going on here?
Yeah.
So support is so important. You've got, a great partner in Damon. You got Rob Delamore, your coach. And by the way, say hi to the boys for me if you would.
As I pass them.
As you pass them. But that support group is so important, and you see that as part of your therapy, don't you?
Oh, 100%. When I started out, the support group was so important to me because you're going into something so unknown, and you want people who are welcoming and who, regardless of your ability, will kind of bring you in and show you the ropes and have you alongside. And as you progress in the sport, those people become more important because you start to deal with other things in the sport, your mental ability going into a race or, how you're feeling on a particular day. And so having people that have gone through it can go, hey, yeah, I know exactly how you're feeling, but you just need to take some time out. You need to step back and realize this is not you. This is everyone who participates in this sport feels this way at this moment. So take a deep breath and then move on. So it's super important to have people in your life that understand you, and whether that's your coach, your the people you train with, your partner. My family still turn up to my races even at this age.
Good.
I mean, even an Ironman, you might see them at a pub or eating an ice cream at the side of the road, but they're there. So it's immensely important to me.
You and I both wish we could do that at an Ironman.
I always remember on my first Ironman, I think it was 3 laps at that stage. And the first lap I saw my mum and my dad and they waved. The second lap, I'm like, where are they? They're not in the same spot. Oh no, they're yelling at me from the bar across the road. And then the third lap, she's eating an ice cream going, see you at the finish line. I'm like, well, nice for some.
As it should be. You might as well. Ironman's hard enough. Sometimes the family make it a little bit harder. That's okay.
Yeah.
Nikki, when someone goes through a period of their life with an addiction or an affliction, it seems to kind of define them. Mm-hmm. Well, she was the one that did this. He was the one that had that. That thing. How have you worked through the years of trying to redefine yourself?
I think for me, it was never, I'm not afraid of saying I've had an eating disorder, but it's definitely not something I introduce myself with. It is something that shows that I have the strength and stamina to persevere, that I am determined. And it's those, qualities that I've got out of having an eating disorder that I use to my advantage. And going forward, I'm very lucky to work in a workplace that understands my passion. And so when I explain to them, I have big goals, for this year, this is what they are, and I explain how important it is to me, they buy into that. And I think it's the fact that they also see that show through in my work and my work ethic at work as well, that I am very passionate about doing the best that I can, whether that be in work or on in training or in the race. And it's that dedication and passion that I bring to things that I see as a challenge, and I don't back down. I tend to somehow get some joy out of that.
Yeah. When you go into sport and you do whatever sport, you learn stuff constantly.
Yeah.
What do you think triathlon and Ironman has taught you, Nikki, about life?
It's taught me so many things. It's taught me, firstly, to take what I do seriously, but not to take myself seriously. So I will, put in a lot of effort and a lot of work, and I'll give my race 100% of my effort. But that doesn't mean that if I fail, so to speak, in the race, that I am a failure.
Right.
It means that it's a learning and it's a step forward to success. It's also taught me patience. I am not a patient person. I'm kind of like, well, I want to get to that race pace now, or I want that result now at work, and how do I get there as soon as possible? And I've learned that you just have to be patient, and like I said, you have to walk before you can run. And I'm still learning that as well. And one of the other biggest things is that I have to give myself permission to fall forward. And by that, I mean, I have to give myself permission to take a risk. And that doesn't mean, I'm not going to, for instance, I've been invited to enter as a pro for the next Tauranga race. And that has a lot of fear around me. I feel like I don't belong. I don't train like a pro in terms of the hours. I work a full-time job. I train as much as I can out of it. And I feel, a lot out of my depth. But if I don't take the chance now, I will never have the opportunity again to be placed in a pressure situation, get to start with the pros in a swim, and there's no way I'll be able to keep up. I don't have their swimming ability. So it'll be a race of a whole different mindset of just being on your own and being with your thoughts and how you're going to play the next move. So it's having that, giving yourself that permission to take some chances without the fear of failure, which fear of failure sits quite close to my heart. So I'm learning to work through that.
Yeah. So you are going to race as a pro for the port?
Yeah, I did. I was allowed last year to do that as well. They have, I guess it's like wild card entries. If you meet a certain criteria, they invite you, would you like to race as a pro? And I came fourth last year in the pro field. So I'm back this year to give it another shot, which who knows at my age, it may be my last. But again, I don't like to pin my age on anything. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I got a feeling it'll never be your last.
Yeah.
The other distinct feeling I have is I believe you're probably vehemently opposed when people talk, especially women, about race weight.
Yep.
To lose the weight, to get faster. Mm-hmm. Talk to me about that process and why you think that's such a bad thing.
I think it's a bad thing. I'll take a step back and give some context about why. So about a year ago, I went through the same thing. Everyone was talking about race weight. Everyone was like, and it's not just women, it's men as well. It's a very prevalent thing because in the world of triathlon, we talk a lot about numbers, whether it's watts per kilo on the bike, whether it's speed, whether it's pace. It's a lot of focus around numbers, and we like to analyze it because that's where we can see opportunities for improvement. And I understand that. And when it comes to race weight, there is, I guess, for many people, a weight at which they have raced with in the past that works the best for them. And so it becomes a predetermined figure in their mind that I must be this weight to get the best outcome. And I got caught in that situation. And I think the reason I got caught in it is obviously not only because of my background of kind of weight being a thing, but it was the number that I could move on the dial that had the greatest, that I could move the best. So, for instance, in terms of watts per kilo on the bike, it takes a lot of effort to increase your power output to move that watts per kilo number. But if you lose weight, if you use a couple of kilos, boom, that might only take a few weeks, but you've moved that number. But there becomes a point where you lose too much weight and you start either getting sick or injured or you can't push the same power. And so I think in our sport, and I've heard it lately because, like I said, we're 2 weeks out from a race, and I've heard it a lot from our coaching group and people that I train with and things online about I'm nearing race weight, I'm feeling, like I'm almost there, or what do I'm skipping breakfast because I want to try and reach my race weight. And I get angry with it because I'm like, you're not setting yourself up for success. You need to set yourself up for success, and you need to fuel for your training, and you need to fuel for a recovery as well. And this sport gives us so much, and we learn so much from it that I hate people putting themselves in jeopardy, because I've been down that hole and it's horrible and it takes a while to get out of it. And when I was in it, I did lose weight, and I got comments at that time about, you look fit. And I was like, in my head, I was like, I might look fit, but I feel like crap, because I am really struggling to hold this weight. And you might say I look amazing, but I certainly don't feel it. So I went down that hole for a while, and then I reached out to a nutritionist and got some help around that. And the funny thing is, I'm actually eating a lot more now than I was then, but I feel better, and people say I look great, which is not all about how I look, but it's like, it's two dichotomies. It's like people might say one thing, you look great, but you feel crap. But when you eat well and someone says that, you're like, yeah, because I'm fueling myself, and I'm fueling myself for my activity. And I just want to see people get the best out of themselves. So when they say things like, I haven't reached my race weight, or I'm not at race weight yet, I'm like, right at this point in time, that's the number you don't need to focus on. What you need to focus on is, are you fueling for the race that's coming up, and the workout you have today? Because if you're not, you're going to end up getting sick in the long term or injured, and it's all been because of a number on a scale, which at the end of the day won't determine your success.
Everyone, we'll be right back after a message from our sponsors. As an endurance athlete, you're constantly pushing your body to new limits, searching for your personal best, for the next finish line. If you're training for an endurance event, whether short distance or long distance, proper recovery is the key to you unlocking your potential. As the official topical pain relief partner for the Ironman US series, Activice's lineup of topical cooling gel, roll-on and spray features 8% menthol and eucalyptus oil to provide the instant icy relief you need to recover smarter and faster. The water-based non-sticky formula withstands sweat to keep up with the demands and exertion of race day. Don't let muscle pain or sprains hold you back from reaching your potential, from reaching your personal best. Shop the Activice's lineup on Amazon today for the support you need to find your finish line. We're talking with Nikki Mathews from New Zealand and accomplished age group athlete, racing pro at Porta Tauranga. I love it. Nikki, when you, and this is the last thing we'll talk about the race weight thing, but when you see somebody going down that hole, so to speak, can that be a prelude to anorexia? Can that be something that mentally will kind of take them out of their balance because they're doing something like that?
I think there are two very, the line is very blurred, but there is eating disordered and disordered eating. And for me, eating disordered comes with the mindset of, I'm not good enough, and a whole lot of other emotional things that go with it that leads you down a hole that you require not only dietitian or nutritional support with. You probably need some psychologist support here. And then there's disordered eating, which is people that follow a fad diet or talk about race weight and try and drop weight because they've thought of a number and maybe don't have all the psychological baggage that goes with it. And so these people, I think, are less predisposed to becoming eating disordered, but could the line is, like I said, so blurred, so they could very easily go to the other side. So when I hear people talk about race weight, I do get nervous because I'm like, don't put my judgment on them about, if they're going to get sick or not. What I do say is, please just fuel for your training. That number is irrelevant. If you're fueling for your training and you're doing the training, the weight, if it needs to, will come off. And if it doesn't need to, it won't. It will make sure you're strong and healthy for your race.
So, you always should try to look for that silver lining in everything. And the last 2 years has been, lack of better word, shit. I mean, it's been tough on all of us. But you in New Zealand, it's like, you're an island on your own. And with the borders closed and people not being able to come in.
Yeah.
On the silver lining side, were you able to use that as a time to where, okay, I let me find out what my strengths and weaknesses are and in the sport and running and cycling and swimming, and did you get the opportunity to work on that a lot because of the pandemic?
Yeah, it was actually quite hard. I'm sure for many people, for us New Zealanders, it was like my partner and I would train for races, and I was actually training for Kona, and then borders got shut, and so that you kind of peak for the race and then it gets pulled away, and then we peaked for another race and then that got pulled away. So we did a lot of building and then no racing. So that takes its mental and physical toll. But there was one thing that both my partner and I agreed on, that it was the training that actually got us through, because there was consistency. There was an outlet for us. It was ability to build on the basics and incorporate back, and we have a home gym that we have some weights and stuff, so incorporate that kind of training back into our day, which is, I think, another super important thing for triathletes if you want to do it long term, is to build in that strength training. So we'd be down in the garage doing some of that kind of stuff, and then building the skills on the bike. I also took the opportunity to develop a new bike position, which I'm kind of glad that I did, because it took a while to get used to it. So, there's always silver linings, but when you're in it, it's hard to find it. When you're hindsight will show you it.
Well, Nikki, you have so much experience, and we're still learning. But I can imagine for you to be able to pass it on to help others out. Do you have the opportunity to talk to young teenage girls or boys about anorexia? Are you able to speak to groups and try to help some people that were in your situation?
Yeah, I've done. So I've done a couple of podcasts. It's funny. It's definitely a topic that a lot of people still. There's a little bit of shame around it, so there's not a lot of openness. So it's. I think it's about breaking those down first. But yes, I have done a couple of podcasts. I've been on the news here in New Zealand. So it's. I think for me, the start of it is just opening up the conversation that it's okay to talk about it and it's not shameful, and then we can build those conversations. But like I said, that's why I'm not afraid to say I've had an eating disorder and I still struggle mentally, so that if people hear that story and want help, they can reach out to me. I'm always available to offer advice, or if I don't know the answer, I can point them in the right direction or share experiences. And sometimes that's all it takes, is just to go, okay, someone understands me and what I'm going through, and that you're not alone.
Yeah, I want to, and we'll get that information at the end of the show so we can let everybody know if they can contact you and for any advice and things like that. What does the 2022 season look like? Are you going to do Ironman New Zealand, or I know you're doing Port?
Yeah, so I'm doing the Port of Tauranga, and then decided not to do Ironman New Zealand. So that was the funny story last year. Was I wasn't supposed to do it either. I was in for the half.
I was.
Yeah, I was in for the half. So it got postponed due to COVID, and once it got postponed, my coach says, I think it might be your only chance for a race this year. So why don't you switch up and do Ironman? Which was a good call in the end, because I ended up winning age group overall. So, so this year I've decided, fingers crossed, nothing gets in the way. The big plan is half Ironman New Zealand and then pop over to Cairns. So I've never done an Ironman overseas other than Kona. So that sounds a bit odd, but so I'm hoping to do Cairns, and then after Cairns, Kona in October.
In October, yeah.
Yeah.
So you qualified at the Ironman New Zealand race in 2019 for Kona. Did you ever think that was going to be an option for you?
I never ever went into a race ever thinking I would ever get to Kona. To be honest, I always thought that I'd have to wait till I was in the 70 to 80-year-old age group when there were less competitors that I might get a chance.
You know how many people have said that to me? Mike, I got to be 75 before I get. Then I go, have you seen the 75-year-olds times?
They're freaking tough, those guys.
They're unbelievable.
And then I've seen them and I'm like, I wonder if I could still be doing that at 75. I don't know, so no, it was never ever in my dream. My dream has always been just to be the best that I can be, and whatever that is on the day, I need to play that card, and that's what I'll continue to do. So see what happens.
Yeah, exactly. Do you live by a philosophy that you talk to yourself about every day?
I talk a lot of shit to myself every day. I think I'm trying. My partner describes me as a glass half empty, and he's the glass half full. So we make a great team, because as a team we work together well, because I'll often look at a situation and be like, oh, and he's like, yeah, but. So I'm learning to look at situations instead of automatically going, ooh, to go, hang on, now I see it. So it's definitely something every day that I need to continue to do, to be, go to bed every night and be grateful. Pick a few things that you're grateful for that day, and then carry that into the next morning. So you wake up going, this is, I'm excited about today, rather than, what it has been in the past is where, I hope I don't wake up today.
Yeah. And as you know, the triathlon family, the Ironman family worldwide is really, really one, because no matter if you live in New Zealand or Germany or Australia or the US, you know, the training, the goals, everything is the same.
Yeah.
So our age groupers have, the last 2 years, like all of us, have been going through a lot of tough stuff. What advice would you give them? If you're standing in front of all the age groupers in the world, what advice would you give them?
I would say that you need to just keep working on your goals, because the goal posts may have moved, but your goals haven't. So if you still want to be the best you can be at a swim, a bike, or a run, or just at a certain time, then that goal should still be there. It's just the goalposts have moved. So you now have more time to get there. So it's actually a kind of almost a blessing in disguise, in terms of you have more physical time to get there. And mentally, you've now got through a very hard period of, having no races and putting in the hard work and not getting the chance to display that. So mentally, you're just building strength, you're building. And that's what I have to tell myself as well. It's been a hard 2 years, but come race day, I'm going to celebrate that race day. And when it gets tough, I'm like, it's going to be tough for 4 or 5 hours and a half. It's been 2 years. Yeah. So I can get through 5 hours, pull it together.
Exactly. I love that. What do you think our sport could do, Nikki? What do you think our sport could do better than it's doing right now to improve it?
I'm really enjoying the kind of the Women for Tri movement, and trying to get more women into tri and more diversity as well. And for me, it's kind of promoting those movements. And a lot of people see the sport as extreme or something they couldn't accomplish. And for me, it's even starting with the very small races, showing that you can do something, but it's more about not necessarily the physical execution of it, but what else you gain from it, the confidence you gain from being able to do something that you thought was impossible. So it's getting those new people in, and getting people who thought they never could do something like that. And of course, the sport is super expensive as well, in terms of, if you want to move through, you need shoes, you need a wetsuit, you need a bike. So, getting those kind of tools available for people would be awesome to have, kind of, a charity or some kind of sponsorship to give people the ability to give it a go.
Yeah, I think because we all know it. As soon as you get them in, as soon as they put that toe into the water, so to speak, they're hooked.
Yeah.
It just hooks people. It draws you in, and the camaraderie, socially and working out. It's just a matter of getting them in. That's for sure. So on Find Your Finish Line, my last question always revolves around what I call TriTable Racing. Mm-hmm. This comes out of table racing, and that's what the Baja 1000 racers in their cars down in Mexico, they get together after the race, and they reminisce about what went on the race. And they're long races. They're like Ironmans. They're 24 hours. And I call it TriTable Racing. So reminisce with us about an event or something that happened at an event, good or bad, funny or sad, whatever it may be, but just TriTable race with us right now.
Oh, I think it's funny when people, ask about your racing and what you did. I don't even remember my times. It's not about times, but what I will remember.
Wait, yeah, hey, everybody. She doesn't remember her times. She's gone. She went 10:09 in Kona. So
something like
I'd remember 10:09.
It's funny. The race that I remember is the last one, because obviously the memory of the pain and what you go through is still there. But also it's closer. But also the very first race, and that's a kind of a memory, because you go into that like anyone going, I don't think I can actually finish. What's going to happen on the day? And I was super nervous about the swim, and I got through the swim, and I was like, and I was looking around like, hey, I got through the swim. And then got to the bike, and my biggest fear on the bike was drafting and getting a flat tire. And I'd practice for ages getting a flat tire and what to do. I had instructions in my pocket because, you know, when you're in a panic situation, I'm like, I'm just going to lose it, and I'm blonde. So I'm going to be a blonde on the side of the road going, help. And I'm like, don't want to be that person. So I had instructions. I was fully prepared, didn't get a flat. So that was slightly disappointing because I was fully prepared for that one.
So you had instructions in your pocket to take out and go, okay, this is how I fix a flat?
This is like a 10-step process. I need to write levers. Number 2 is this. Because I knew I would just probably panic. And to be honest,
that's good.
I still have that. So I take it on every race. I've just made the steps a bit shorter because I know one day it's going to happen. Touch wood, it doesn't happen in Tauranga, but it's going to happen. I'm going to panic and I'm going to need those instructions.
That's beautiful. I love that you're still carrying the instructions around.
Oh, it's my life instructions.
The next time we're together, I got to see those. They're probably all crumpled up. And
I sellotape them so they're laminated, so if I sweat on them, we're good.
I love it. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, and then I just remember getting through that. That was awesome. And I got to the, changing into run gear, and normal people just put on their shoes and start out on the run. I was like, oh, I need to put some shorts on because I don't want to be running in my tights because everyone will see my bum. So I had no idea what was going through my head, but I basically did a full change because it was all about how, I didn't want people laughing at me, and I went out on my run, and I don't know why I did that. And then all I remember on that run is at one point I was almost in tears telling my mum when I passed her, I am in so much pain. And I remember her saying, well, why don't you stop? And I just looked at her and I was like, what are you talking about? And then just ran on because in my mind I was like, I might be in pain, but I'm not stopping and I am not quitting. Like, this is what I trained for. This is what I paid for. This is what I came for. It's exactly what should be happening. I just don't like it.
That's a mum thing. That's okay.
That's okay. And then, that finish line was the best thing ever. It's the one that'll stick in your mind for life. Running that red carpet. Fortunately, I was slow enough to have no one around me at that point. I do remember that time, which was 11 hours 25 for my first Ironman. And then the voice. Yep, your voice. That is like the one thing that everyone dreams of. Sorry, it's odd, but to be called across the line and be told you're an Ironman is like the emotion, and you see that in people as they come across the line, accomplishing something that they never thought possible. It all just happens on that red carpet.
It really does. It's a special piece of real estate that lasts a lifetime. And
it does.
The good thing about that, and I'm sure this is what you are, Nikki, you're an influencer, and when someone like yourself comes from where you have come from, and doing what you do today, I hope you realize how much of an influence you are to many, many people out there.
I just always remember when I hit the red carpet, I remember being told, look, you'll probably never walk again, and you're probably going to die. And now I'm running down the red carpet going, kind of, I think I'm stronger than anyone thinks I am, and possibly stronger than I think I am myself.
You are. You are strength. There's no doubt about that. And your personal relationships today, compared to what they were like when you were in your 20s, it's got to be night and day.
Completely. Like, I have a very supportive partner. He's as crazy as I am in terms of his love for the sport and, the getting up at 5 a.m. every morning to train before you go to work and coming home tired and training again and cramming things in. And, your family my family fully understands it. So if they have an event or a party or a birthday, it's always like, yep, Nikki, come when you finish training. So it's amazing. And the friends that I have now, all of them are actually from the tri world, because I entered that world kind of with no real friends at that point, because I've come out of treatment, just started back in the world, so to speak. And that's how I built my friendships, is through triathlon. And they are people that go through a lot with you, so they will always be there.
Yeah, they will. That's the strength of those relationships, and I am happy you found them. That is fantastic. Yeah. Well, Nikki Mathews, thank you very much for being on Find Your Finish Line. Your story is so inspiring, and I hope people listen to this and and can be inspired by it, because there's ones out there that are looking in the mirror right now and they're not liking what they see. So Nikki, I'm glad your message is out there. And everybody, thank you for joining me again for another edition of Find Your Finish Line, presented by Active Ice, the official topical pain relief partner of Ironman. If you like the podcast, give us a review. You can find us on Apple, my website, MikeRiley.net. And always keep in mind, everybody, you are the cause of so many of your experiences. So keep them positive and watch how they get you to your next finish line. Aloha, everyone.